Mary, how does the fault?
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
This election is going to come down to two words: Kavanaugh and caravan.
I think two words are going to define the 2018 election in the next 3 weeks. One is Kavanaugh, and the other is caravan. Anger over how the left smeared, engaged in character assassination, lied, used bullying tactics with Judge Kavanaugh is going to be one part of this. And the degree to which the left is eager to have 3,000 people in a caravan cross the American border, break American law, recognizing that if that happens, the next caravan will be even bigger. And I think those will end up being the reasons the Republicans keep the House and dramatically increase the number of senators they have.
Oh, my God. So that is where it came from. That's where the whole incitement thing came from, about Kavanaugh and caravan, Kavanaugh and caravan. And this thing has morphed into some of the ugliest stuff you've ever heard, seen, experienced in an election in your life. So today, because everybody lives where they live and they don't see other people's commercials, you know, I just started looking through one commercial. Okay, last night I saw that they were smearing Amy McGrath. This just flipped me out. Okay, you know, when I was in the Air Force, there weren't a whole lot of female aircraft mechanics. In fact, I believe that we were the first class of 30 women who were even able to be in that field, okay? And 3 of us graduated, and we were all short little blondes, okay? It's just, I don't know, maybe because we could get up into the tail, you know, maybe because the little blonde girl can get all the way up into the tail to change the light bulb up there. I have no idea, but that's what happened. And now Amy McGrath, who is, I mean, she was a Marine. She went to the academy. She graduated. She became a bombardier in a F-18. She did 89 combat missions as a bombardier. You know, and then and the reason why she wasn't a pilot immediately is because she had bad eyesight and she did not qualify for pilot training. So then, after her service and flying these 89 missions, she was able to get LASIK surgery to correct her less than perfect vision. And then after that, 2003 and 4, she got pilot training and she became a pilot of F-18s and was redeployed to Afghanistan and Iraq. And then she told the Marines she wanted to have a baby, and they let her. And then, you know, they said, well, we want to redeploy you. And she said, well, I want to have more children. And they said, well, that's not what the Marines want. And she said, but that's what I want. And so she left active service, and she ended up becoming a professor at the academy. And these freaks are attacking her, saying she is claiming stolen valor. She is in the Aviation Hall of Fame. That's who she is. It's what her life is. It's what she's done. It is the most, you know. And so I was looking at that last night, and I tweeted that out, and I said, you know, as one of the first female aircraft mechanics in the I don't want to support vets who do this to vets. It's just disgusting. They're swift boating her, and they're taking away from her what is her curriculum vitae, what is her resume, what is her experience, and that she is in the Aviation Hall of Fame because it is what it is. And they're saying, well, she ran this commercial, you know, and in this commercial, she said that she was, you know, piloting a F-15, you know, an F-18. She did not say she was piloting although she did pilot an F-18, she did become a pilot, but this is, I mean, this is just so wrong.
When I was 12 years old, I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I grew up. I wanted to fly fighter jets and land on aircraft carriers because that's the toughest flying you can do. When I was 13, my congressman told me I couldn't fly in combat. He said Congress thought women ought to be protected and not allowed to serve in combat. I never got a letter back from my Senator Mitch McConnell. I then wrote every member of the House and Senate Armed Services Committees asking them to change the law. I said they just hadn't met me yet, and I knew I could do it, but most of them told me I couldn't. Then I got into the Naval Academy, and wouldn't you know, that's when they changed the law. I'm Amy McGrath, and I love our country. I spent 20 years as a U.S. Marine, flew 89 combat missions bombing Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. I was the first woman Marine to fly in an F-18 in combat, and I got to land on aircraft carriers. Now I'm running for Congress against Andy Barr in my home state of Kentucky. He's Mitch McConnell's hand-picked congressman who said he would vote enthusiastically to take health care away from over 250,000 Kentuckians. Mr. Barr, my mom is a polio survivor who became one of the first women to graduate from UK medical school. Wow. A lot of people told her she couldn't achieve her dreams either, but she persevered and ended up treating many of the same kind of people whose health care you and Mr. McConnell would take away. This is my new mission, to take on a Congress full of career politicians who treat the people of Kentucky like they're disposable. Some are telling me a Democrat can't win that battle in Kentucky, that we can't take back our country for my kids and yours. We'll see about that.
Amazing, right? Amazing. Now, that was her announcement video. And that particular video, as you know, went viral because people were sharing it all. And it is exactly what I keep telling you. Once you've been in the military, if you're not in the political part, meaning officers, although she retired as a lieutenant colonel, it strikes me as just amazing that she is a Democrat. But that is what you learn in the military. You learn that you're only as good as the weakest among you, and that the weakest among you can get you killed. So your job, if you're strong and smart, is to reach down and pull up somebody and help them be better. And Amy McGrath has done exactly that with her life. And Amy McGrath is running in Kentucky, where Mitch McConnell intends to remain the majority leader. And his stated position is to take away Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, vote away Obamacare, get rid of pre-existing conditions. And this administration is currently involved in a lawsuit that has been brought by 20 red state governors. And that's why governors matter, everybody. Why should I vote? It matters. That are trying to declare that the coverage for pre-existing conditions is unconstitutional. And so they should strike down all of Obamacare. That is what is going on, and Mitch McConnell is leading that fight. And she has decided in Kentucky's 6th district that she's not done fighting for good things. And so this is so sick to me. You got this Army veteran named Jim Lucas, and him and a group of about 6 veterans petitioned the Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame to have Amy McGrath removed for misrepresenting her record of flights in combat in these commercials. Now, she has been very consistent about her service, and her service checks out. She was the first Marine female to fly an F-18 into combat. She was a weapons system operator in those 89 combat missions. She was not the pilot. She was the weapons system operator. She was the bombardier, okay, for those of you who served before technology. She did, however, become the front seat pilot. But she never flew an F-18 into combat because they assigned her to support missions. But it's just so unbelievable. She's never said that she piloted the F-18 during combat. She never got it wrong. And, I mean, you look at, the bone spurs there. You know, this party is going to ridicule her. Let me tell you what she has done. She graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1997. She didn't have perfect vision. So instead of becoming a pilot, she became a weapons system operator. And she worked on and in F-18D Hornets. Her call sign was Krusty. She was the first woman Marine to fly in an F-18 into combat when she was deployed to Kyrgyzstan in 2002. And while there, she flew more than 50 Marine combat missions into Afghanistan as the weapons system operator. She went back to the Middle East in 2003 as part of the initial push into the Iraq War. She flew 30 combat missions there. So 89 combat missions as a weapons system officer. And that's why she gets to say that. She did later become a pilot. I'm sorry, I said 2003. It's 2004. In 2004 and 7, she went back to Texas after getting LASIK surgery and passing the pilot eye test. She trained in Texas, and she moved from the back seat to the front seat of that plane. And that is when she got her childhood dream of landing on aircraft carriers. Her first landing on an aircraft carrier was in 2006 in a smaller plane, and later on an F-18 in 2007. And after that training, she was deployed to Afghanistan in 2010, this time as a pilot. But instead of flying combat missions, she was assigned aviation support duties. She said, when you're in the military, you do what Uncle Sam tells you. She said there are some people who don't go into combat at all. And then the last 8 years of her military service was spent in the United States, first on Capitol Hill, then she worked at the Pentagon, and then she became a professor at the U.S. Naval Academy, where she had graduated in 1997. She had her first child in 2013, and a general called her into his office. Oh, this gives me the chills. And said, "We want you to return to flying." And I said, "Sir, I want another kid." And he said, "Okay, that's not what the Marine Corps wants." And she said, "Well, that's what I want." And he said, "Well, you missed this opportunity to go back and be an executive officer and fly again. You will not be promoted anymore." She said, fine. She had 2 more children and retired from the Marine Corps in 2017 as a lieutenant colonel. Oh, let's trash her. So I started, I was looking at that. And then I started looking at the other ads across this country, and I just thought, oh my God, these ads, these attack ads at the Republicans, they're all coming from something called well, not all of them. Some of them are coming from very bizarre places, but most of them are coming from Paul Ryan. They're coming from the Congressional Leadership Fund. That's the PAC that Paul Ryan runs. Paul Ryan, who wants to go after your entitlements. Paul Ryan, we have to tackle entitlement. Paul Ryan, the deficit hawk, until all of a sudden he's not a deficit hawk. Now he's a deficit hawk again because, and by the way, I got to tell, this attack on Social Security and Medicare, you do know if they cut Social Security and Medicare, you know where the money goes, right? Money goes back into the trust fund, your trust fund, unless they steal it to pay down the debt that they ran up.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Even on positive news, really positive news, like that, they were like death and un-American.
Oh.
Un-American. Somebody said treasonous. I mean, yeah, I guess why not? You know, can we call that treason? Why not? I mean, they certainly didn't seem to love our country very much.
He's talking about Democrats. Democrats are not American. Democrats are anti-American. This president, nobody even knows what side he's on. Nobody can figure out whether or not this transactional president is so, in love with money and so in love with enriching himself in this office. Nobody can tell whose interests he's really representing, ours as Americans or Saudi or Russia or who. No one knows. No one knows. And no one is clear because this president is a person who is obviously, promoting fascism. It's what he does. So anyway, I don't want to get too far off the beaten path because I want to show you what's going on in this country. These attack ads, they just, like last night. If you watched me on Twitter last night at Randi Rhodes, you'll see what I was doing. I don't know if you could connect the connective tissue that was making me think this way, but what happened was it started with Amy McGrath, and I was furious. I'm just furious as a veteran, as a woman, as somebody who was one of the first aircraft mechanics, and I understood, like what it was to be up against it in the military. I mean, in my squadron, there were 300 guys and me. That was what. Anyway, Bone Spur's there and all these people that never served, they will never understand. They will never, ever get it. But beyond that, okay, I started looking at all these freaking ads that are up. Now, one of the ads that went viral, needs to go viral, is so disgusting that it manages to piss off everyone. I mean, there is nothing good or redeeming or anything in this ad. This is an ad that was put up for a candidate named French in Arkansas. Okay, there's a congressional race in Arkansas, and Clarke Tucker, just in case you live there, Clarke Tucker is the Democrat. Thank you. Please vote for Clarke Tucker. And if you don't get angry after you hear this ad, angry enough to vote and angry enough to vote for Clarke Tucker, then I got to say there's something, missing in your soul. I got to say where your heart should be, or where your compassion should be, or your empathy should be, or your love of this country and wanting to move forward and getting into the 20th century, wherever that part of you, you're missing it. It's an empty hole. It's dead. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is an ad for the current incumbent in Little Rock named French Hill. Okay? This was put up by a PAC called African Americans for the Trump Agenda. Now, I will tell you, it's headed by two people. It's headed by Vernon Robinson and by a black Republican state legislator in West Virginia. I posted on her Facebook page, I said, this is wrong. I didn't even know what to say to her about this. But how in the world? This pissed off white women. This should piss off black women. This should piss off black men who are raising black sons. I mean, this pissed off just everybody, including French Hill, the incumbent on whose behalf this ad was run. And by the way, this isn't just running in Arkansas. There's another one that's very similar that's running against Claire McCaskill for Josh Hawley in Missouri. Same thing. I'll just play you this one, though.
What do you think about what's happening in Washington?
Our Congressman French Hill and the Republicans know that it's dangerous to change the presumption of innocence to a presumption of guilt, especially for black men. If the Democrats can do that to a white justice of the Supreme Court with no evidence, no corroboration, and all of her witnesses, including her best friend, say it didn't happen, what will happen to our husbands, our fathers, or our sons when a white girl lies on them?
Girl, white Democrats will be lynching black folk again.
Oh, no. Honey, I've always told my son, don't be messing around with that. If you get caught, she will cry rape.
I'm voting to keep Congressman French Hill and the Republicans because we have to protect our men and boys. We can't afford to let white Democrats take us back to bad old days of race verdicts, life sentences, and lynchings when a white girl screams rape.
Paid for by black Americans for the president's agenda. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Oh, my freaking God. This ad is so offensive to interracial couples. Don't race mix. I tell my sons, don't you mess with that. And they're not safe when a white woman screams rape on them. This is like, it is offensive to white women. It's offensive to black men. It's offensive to black women. It's offensive to interracial couples. It's offensive to interracial children. I mean, this ad was so bizarre. And they spent $50,000 on it in Arkansas. And there's a similar ad running in Missouri on behalf of Josh Hawley, who is trying to unseat Claire McCaskill in a Senate race. Does anybody think that this ad, I mean, and it's all about Kavanaugh, right? This is the Kavanaugh and Caravan thing, Kavanaugh and Caravan. Now, remember, the FBI was not allowed to interview any of the 8 witnesses that Christine Blasey Ford presented to them, nor were they able to talk to any of the 10 witnesses that Deborah Ramirez asked them to please speak to who could corroborate her story. Remember that. Okay, but this is the Kavanaugh and Caravan thing, and it's all been thought about by the guy who literally wrecked the Republican Party and turned it into something that Lee Atwater and the racist right wing, the Barry Goldwater crowd would just love. Everybody forgets, Barry Goldwater was just such a racist running against LBJ. And, but this is the bad old days. This is what this is. This is just so disgusting. I can't even tell you. And if that one, and so, by the way, if you do live in Little Rock, vote for Clarke Tucker. He is the Democrat that is running against Congressman French. These people are going to have to live with the kind of campaigns they're running. This ad is disgusting. It's disgraceful. It has no place in the 21st century of American politics. So that was just one, okay? And that one was just bizarre. I mean, it was just so bizarre. And, of course, I had to find out who paid for it, and I did. And, I couldn't. Black Americans for the president's agenda. Jill Upson. She is a delegate in the State House in West Virginia. She chairs Black Americans for the president's agenda, and that's why I went to her Facebook page. She does have a Facebook page, Jill Upson, UPSON, on her Facebook page. You'll see that she is she belongs to the West Virginia House of Delegates, and I mean, this is to use false rape allegations made by white women against black men to justify white lynch mobs that will target black men because we will yell rape against you. Oh my God. Girl, white Democrats will be lynching black men again. What? The Dixiecrats became Republicans. The biggest race baiting is the Republican Party currently. And it's been going on since Goldwater, okay? It's been going on ever since LBJ got very committed to civil rights, knowing he was going to lose the South for a generation or two. He said, I don't care. Some things are worth more than, being president. He didn't even run for a second term, okay? But LBJ fought for civil rights. LBJ fought for voting rights. LBJ fought for Medicare. He fought for Medicaid. He fought a war against poverty, okay? He tried his damnedest, screwed up on foreign policy just like so many of them do, and got us involved in Vietnam. And of course, the Republicans love Vietnam because 19-year-old black boys were suddenly chattel again in the military. Okay, so that happened. Now, check this one out. If you're in Ohio, you've probably seen this. If you're not in Ohio, you need to see this. This is just disgusting, okay? This is against a candidate that his name is Purval, Aftab Purval. He is a House candidate in Ohio's 1st District. Before I play this for you, let me give you his CV, his curriculum vitae, his background. He is the Hamilton County Clerk of Courts. He worked as an antitrust litigator at one of the biggest law firms in the country, White & Case. That was his first full-time job out of law school. The firm, which he was not involved in this case at all. However, the firm settled terrorism-related lawsuits that were filed against Muammar Gaddafi and Libya in U.S. courts. White & Case was representing Libya, but Libya lost and they were forced to pay $1.5 billion to the families of the 189 Americans who died in the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland. The Libya settlement deal was approved by Congress, and he was 6 years old when that happened. He was 6 years old. Check this out.
Politician Aftab Purival will say anything to get elected.
The special interests and lobbyists rig the game to benefit themselves.
Purival should know he worked at a D.C. lobbying firm. But worse than Purival's lies is his hypocrisy. Purival's lobbying firm made millions helping Libya reduce payments owed to families of Americans killed by Libyan terrorism. Selling out Americans? Aftab Purival can't be trusted. Congressional Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
That's Paul Ryan's group. He was 6 years old. His first job out of law school was working for this particular antitrust firm, this Whiten case, okay? And he was a litigator there doing antitrust litigation. The deal, by the way, was approved by Congress, and now he is the county clerk of courts. That is his job. That is what he does now. And they're calling him a terrorist because his name is Aftab Purival. Which, if I'm right, he's probably of Indian descent. And most likely not a terrorist. Oh, I just want... Okay, and now, if you don't... This is a New York ad. This one is so vile, I can't even tell you. This is New York's 19th district. You have a man, his name is Antonio Delgado. He is running for the House seat in New York's 19th district. Here is his background. He is a Rhodes Scholar and a Harvard Law School graduate. Yeah, complete trash, right? He worked at one of the largest law firms in the country. He worked for Aiken Gump until January of 2018. And he is obviously an African American. And this is the ad that Paul Ryan is running against him.
Who am I? I'm Antonio Delgado. I was raised to believe you're supposed to love your neighbor.
I'm an attorney, fighting for what's fair and just.
Gotcha, sweating this like you having sex to a porno flick.
We owe it to our country to restore the American dream.
Criticize is what a patriot does.
God bless our rap, bless our rap, bless our rap, bless our rap.
Who am I? I'm Antonio Delgado.
The NRCC is responsible for the content of this ad.
National Republican Congressional Campaign. Okay, so this is Paul Ryan, too. Delgado is a Rhodes Scholar. He is a Harvard Law School graduate who worked at one of the largest law firms in the country. He, as a young guy, before he went to law school, he was kind of he was a wonk rapper. Okay, I don't know how else to say it. He rapped wonky lyrics, political lyrics. Now, the things that they flashed, let's put them in context, shall we? You know, they flashed God Bless Iraq, right? Here is the full lyric from which that line was plucked. Quote, "We must fight with love and goodness in our hearts and peace in our minds if democracy, equality, and freedom are truly to prevail. God bless America. God bless Iraq. God bless us all." Another set of lyrics. More than 40 times the lives lost on 9/11 and 10 times just for the lives of Iraqi civilians. $283 billion and counting is what we're spending. But terror is alive and well. It seems further from ending. You bastard. You bastard. Quote, "Issues like income inequality, like gender equality, issues like pollution of our environment and climate change. These are all issues that I talked about back then as an artist, and I'm talking about them now." Rhodes Scholar, Harvard Law School graduate. He put his rap career behind him so that he could go to Harvard and Oxford. You bastard, you. You're a bad, bad man. Oh, wait, there's more. If you are In Maine's 2nd District, you've probably seen the attack ads on Jared Golden. I'll play you that. And also in New Jersey, there are attack ads against a guy named Tom Malinowski. This is just crazy. Then you've got the Dave Bratt Spanberger fight that's going on. Dave Bratt in Virginia. Dave Bratt in Virginia screwed up so badly yesterday. He went to a prison to talk to drug addicts who are imprisoned. And he said to them, quote, "You think you got a hard time? I got 5 million worth of negative ads going at me." That's what he told the imprisoned drug addicts. He said, "How do you think I'm feeling? Nothing's easy."
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Mainers work hard, pay their taxes. So why isn't Jared Golden looking out for us? In Augusta, Golden voted to let welfare recipients use your tax dollars to buy tattoos, tobacco, alcohol, even lottery tickets. Golden even opposed middle-class tax cuts that are saving Maine families over $2,000 a year. Liberal Jared Golden. Wasteful handouts for them. Higher taxes for us. Congressional Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Okay, same PAC. This is Paul Ryan's PAC, Congressional Leadership Fund. And Jared Golden is an ex-Marine who served in Afghanistan and Iraq, and he has tattoos on one arm. I'm not kidding. By the way, the federal government requires, there is a ban that prohibits welfare from being used, TANF, T-A-N-F, temporary assistance for needy families. You cannot go into a tattoo parlor and buy tattoos, tobacco, alcohol, lottery tickets, and other items. In fact, Jared Golden said, his quote is, "I fully oppose any misuse of these funds." The federal government obviously bans that particular use of TANF funds. He states on the record he is opposed to the use of SNAP for those purchases, also meaning tattoos, tobacco, alcohol, and other items. And it says Golden opposed President Trump's tax cuts, to which Golden responded, "I once voted in favor of cutting Maine's income tax," but they don't tell you that. Okay, so there's that one on a Iraq-Afghanistan vet. Now we've got this one. This one is a New Jersey race.
Common sense, getting things done. Leonard Lance is rated among Congress's most bipartisan. Rare in Washington, right for New Jersey. Tom Malinowski is different. After 20 years as an insider and D.C. lobbyist, he fits right in. Failed to pay his property taxes on time, yet backs higher taxes on us. So out of touch, Malinowski lobbied for terrorists' rights. Backed billions for Iran. Tom Malinowski's done enough damage in Washington. Congressional Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Okay, Congressional Leadership Fund. Again, that's Paul Ryan's PAC. Malinowski is a former Assistant Secretary of State under President Barack Obama. And before he was Assistant Secretary of State, he was the Washington Advocacy Director for Human Rights Watch. That's terrorist, baby. You know what? He actually agrees with Brett Kavanaugh on this particular issue. What he did was he lobbied members of the House, Senate, and State Department to give access to courts for enemy combatants held at Guantanamo. Brett Kavanaugh wrote the memo about the United States Constitution will not keep anybody, from having access to the U.S. courts once you are in American custody. So he actually agrees with Brett Kavanaugh there. It's now well-settled law. In 2008, the Supreme Court decided in Boumediene versus Bush that Guantanamo detainees had a right to a hearing to challenge the basis for their detention. This is where Brett Kavanaugh lied, though, to Congress. He said he did no work on this issue, but of course he did. Now, the side that he was on was the side that detainees had a right to contest their detention in an American court. Anthony Kennedy wrote the decision, and he wrote, quote, "The laws and Constitution are designed to survive and remain in force in extraordinary times. Liberty and security can be reconciled. And in our system, they are reconciled within the framework of the law. The framers decided that habeas corpus, meaning bring the person, bring the body, that's what it actually means. The framers decided that habeas corpus, a right of first importance, must be part of that framework, must be part of that law. So this man argued for the Constitution to be upheld. Justice Kennedy agreed, as did Brett Kavanaugh. And they're running, Paul Ryan is running that ad against Tom Malinowski. So if you live in New Jersey's 7th district, that would be your candidate. All right, let's move on. Let's look at this particular race. This is unbelievable. And of course, you have an indicted felon, okay? You've got a Duncan Hunter, and Duncan Hunter, of course, is still on the ballot. We'll deal with that in a minute. But let's go to Minnesota. This is Minnesota's 1st district. I believe this is number 8. This is, no, this is Virginia. I know, I did this wrong. This is Virginia. Okay, this is what's going on in Virginia.
What is Abigail Spanberger hiding? Spanberger doesn't want us to know that she taught at an Islamic school nicknamed Terror High, a terrorist breeding ground. One graduate plotted to assassinate President Bush. Another was arrested for trying to bring a butcher knife on an airplane. So dangerous, even Chuck Schumer called for the school to be shut down. But Abigail Spanberger cashed her paychecks like nothing was wrong. Congressional Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
This is also Paul Ryan's PAC, okay. Abigail Spanberger was, she for a very, very short time, for like, a couple weeks, she was a substitute English teacher at this school outside of Washington. However, Abigail Spanberger is a CIA counterterrorism agent. This is the ad there. She worked at Muslim Terror High. She is a CIA counterterrorism agent. She is running against Dave Bratt, who, as I mentioned, was in a prison yesterday and complained to the prisoners that his life is harder than theirs. He said, quote, "You think you're having a hard time? I got 5 million worth of negative ads going at me. How do you think I'm feeling? Nothing's easy for anybody. You think I'm a congressman? Oh, life's easy. This guy's having steak. Bullshit. I got a daughter. She's got to deal with the crap on TV every day. It's tough." Now, he was talking to a group of prison inmates who are in a recovery program to overcome their addiction to drugs prior to their release. Now, what you don't know about Congressman Bratt, but you should before you vote, is he has taken massive campaign contributions from pharmaceutical companies. He gave them $1 billion tax break and voted to limit access to addiction services. This also goes along with their trying to destroy Obamacare or the ACA and all this because, quite frankly, it does cover addiction services. And if they got rid of it, do you think your junk policy would? I say no. You think it will cover any mental health issues? I say no. It won't even cover pregnancy. It's a pre-existing condition. All right. So anyway, Trump endorsed Bratt, and they started running these commercials. And while he was in the prison, one of the women said she wanted to get a college degree but was not eligible for certain grants because she has a felony conviction. And he said, get an entry-level job at a college, and maybe you'll qualify for tuition. He also said they won't allow. Another woman complained that the recovery houses, the halfway houses, which we're very familiar with in this neighborhood because they're everywhere. But this is a very, upscale neighborhood, just so you know. And there are plenty of, sort of neighborhoods that are, what do you call them? Like gated communities and stuff. And in those gated communities, there are townhouses. And in the townhouses, you got, halfway houses. Lots of them. So a woman was complaining to Dave Bratt that the recovery houses where inmates live in Virginia are in drug-infested neighborhoods. and it's very unhealthy. She said they won't allow us to be in nicer areas. They want recovery homes to be right there on the corner where drugs are dealt. It's a not in my backyard thing. And Brat replied to her, "You won't believe the depression in the hoity-toity neighborhoods." He said, in his hoity-toity neighborhood, a lot of people are very depressed right now. And so, they have it hard too. Anyway, there's a clear choice. Spamberger, could I just say her name over and over again? So we have that. And then, this one's kind of known. I don't know. I mean, if you live in California in the 50th district, God, that state is huge, 50th district. There is an ad running against Amar Campa-Najjar. Amar Campa-Najjar. Tough name, right? Mm-hmm.
Amar Campa-Najjar is working to infiltrate Congress. He's used 3 different names to hide his family's ties to terrorism. His grandfather masterminded the Munich Olympic massacre. His father said they deserved to die.
A Palestinian-Mexican millennial Democrat named Amar Campa-Najjar doesn't get his support from the people of San Diego.
He is being supported by CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood. This is a well-orchestrated plan.
Amar Campa-Najjar, a risk we can't ignore.
I'm Duncan Hunter, and I approve this message.
Duncan Hunter, an indicted felon, is running that ad. And Paul Ryan's paying for it. Can I just tell you that Amar Campa-Najjar is a Christian Palestinian / Mexican. That's his background. And he holds a security clearance, or did, while he worked in the Obama White House. So but do you see the comment? Either if they're black, they're rappers, right? Even if they're a Rhodes Scholar, Harvard graduate, meaning that you went to Harvard and Oxford. Okay, so they're terrorists. And if you're a hyphenated name, or you have a name that's not completely Doug Jones or something like this, then you're a terrorist. You're a terrorist. And if you're a woman, then you worked as a school teacher in Terror High, even though you are a CIA counterterrorist analyst. This is the sickest thing, and you know what this is about, obviously. This is about fascism. This is about giving Donald Trump... Listen, how could you give him anything more than he already has? You know what really makes me sick is last night, I won't even play for you because I'm sure you've heard it before, on other places, and people get really upset when we take up our precious little 2 hours with him. But last night he had a rally in Montana, and last night he said that a guy who body slams another guy is his kind of guy, talking about Greg Gianforte, who literally body slammed a journalist, and Donald Trump is having to deal with a dismembered, beheaded, tortured journalist living in Virginia, and brings up Greg Gianforte attacking a journalist and says he's my kind of guy. But beyond that, he also talked about this election's going to be what Newt Gingrich told him to say, caravans and Kavanaugh, right? And now you can see the ads are actually, anti-immigrant and blah, 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 and this and that. Well, the caravans, as you know, are a recurring thing. They happen all the time, as you know. But check this out. You got a president who right now, this is what you gave him. I didn't give it to him, but you gave him a majority in the House, a majority in the Senate, Supreme Court majority to rubber stamp any damn thing that he wants to pass and sign. And he's done nothing on immigration reform. Not a thing. So could somebody please remind your Republican friends that when he stands on a stage and talks about caravans and that he's going to shut down the southern border, which is responsible for probably a third of our trade, if not more, I have to check, but Mexico's our biggest trading partner. And if he shuts down... Now, they're coming from Honduras. And if he doesn't want them to come from Honduras, he ought to do something with the Honduran president. And then they're going to go through Guatemala. And if he doesn't want them coming through Guatemala, you would think that he would have a sit down with the Guatemalan president And then if he doesn't want them coming up through Mexico, you would think he would have a sit down with the Mexican president. But beyond all that diplomacy, and oh, how crazy that would be, he would not be in a gymnasium in Montana, right? He could actually get immigration reform through a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and even if it's the most unconstitutional, disgusting, disgraceful, like put children in prison for the rest of their lives for a misdemeanor, right? Because he was saying last night, they're criminals. They're criminals that are coming up through the border. They're criminal. Can I just tell you, he's got more criminals in his administration. He had more criminals in his campaign than are in these caravans. I mean, you know, the pressure of a name. You go through all of it. Paul Manafort wheeled into by wheelchair today. The food in the prison is hurting his foot. His foot? He's getting gout or something. Yeah, they wheeled him into prison. They're going to sentence him in February. But Paul Manafort, our national security advisor, Michael Flynn, the president's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, the deputy campaign manager, Rick Gates. I mean, he's got more criminals in his little cabal of, 20 people that are in this entire caravan. However, can you just shake your Republican friends before they go to vote and say, the president is just ginning up hatred, because otherwise, if he really gave a damn, he could pass comprehensive immigration reform, or he could just ban whatever he wants to ban right now. He could do whatever he wants. Karen could do whatever she wants. That's how much power this man has with a Republican House, Republican Senate, and Supreme Court that would rubber stamp anything. And what does he choose to do? He chooses to make Saudi Arabia great again. He chooses to say Mexicans again, because it's a constant performer for him. It's a constant performer. This hatred, this fascist hatred of others is what he loves. He loves because it's a performer. It works really great for him. He literally tweeted last night. This is his tweet. Democratic Party-led assault on our country by Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. Yeah, they're storming our defenses with toddlers, everybody. And then he described the caravan as, and in all caps, including many criminals. Flynn, Gates, Manafort, Cohen, Papadopoulos, Van der Zwaan, Russians, Russian companies. I mean, his election had more criminals than this caravan, and I'm just counting the ones that pled guilty. That's all I'm doing. We'll get a fuller report after the election. Why we can't get it before, so we know what we need to do, because there's some unspoken etiquette still left in our country. Yeah. You don't tell us if the president is a crook before the election. You spring it on us after. I mean, this is just so sick. But he has total control. Total control of everything. The borders, the Congress, the Supreme Court. I mean, total control. And he's tweeting they have no control over their population. You mean like Saudi Arabia does, or Russia does, or North Korea does, or you do over these MAGA creeps, or these racist creeps, or the 30% that will continually vote for you because you are sufficiently racist, which is what he knows. So, gotta say, his blaming it's just gotta stop.
Mary had a little man. The fault.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind. He's blaming Democrats for this. He says Democrats, this is an onslaught brought by the Democrats because they refuse to acknowledge or change the laws. Is that fair in your mind?
Well, I think what he's saying is the Democrats are out there basically calling for open borders, basically calling for people to come to America.
They're not calling for open borders.
Well, they are. I mean, I was on Chris's show last night, and I was on with someone who's basically saying everybody who comes to the border should have an opportunity to come into America. So, they won't say open borders because that's a very controversial term. But
I've never heard a Democrat campaign on open borders.
Well, they don't say the word open borders, but they say that we should be compassionate to everybody who wants to come to America.
Does compassion mean open borders?
That's the same. That's
do you not want to be compassionate?
I want to be compassionate, but we can't be saying to people, well, come, and somewhere or another we'll let you enter this country, whether you come illegally or not. That's not compassionate to the millions of Americans who are going to be impacted by that flow of illegals. And the point the president makes about the Democrats is, let's be honest. I mean, Democratic funders like George Soros are funding these types of caravans for political purposes.
Oh my God, these conspiracy theories are endless. They are George Soros, everybody. George Soros, the mystery man, is down in Honduras paying people. There was a video that's been retweeted by Conspiracy Trump and his, sons and others, and they're doing all these conspiracies. The one about the caravan shows people getting money in some nondescript town. We don't know if it was Honduras or Guatemala or Mexico or where this thing was taken. But the money that's being handed out is money that's being given to people by the drug cartels. This is what Pablo Escobar used to do in Colombia. You pay the locals so that when the police come, the federales come, and they say, is there drug activity in your town? They say, I don't know what you're talking about. I've seen nothing. Right? And that the drug cartels pay the local people. And so they got a hold of a video where people are being paid by the drug cartels. And they decided that it's George Soros. I'll tell you who's a crime family, a cartel. And that is the fascists. That is the Saudis are a crime family. There is no doubt in my mind. The Trump family is a crime family. There is no doubt in my mind. And why we can't find out before we vote that is a true statement for real. Not just that he defrauded students or that he stiffed workers or that, whatever. Why we can't find out. But here's the point. On immigration, you got the House, you got the Senate, you got the presidency, and you got the court. And you can't pass immigration reform or whatever you want to call it. You can't pass tough borders. You can't get your money for your stinking wall, which is your cure-all, right? You can't get it. You got Republicans in the House. You got Republicans in the Senate. You got the presidency and the Supreme Court, and you can't get anything done? But you're the leader. You're the tough guy, right? Listen, there's a difference between being tough and mean. Being tough requires maturity and strength, and it requires an intellect. You got to know the game you're playing and how to play it. Being mean is garden variety swill. And what this president is a mean man. He's just a mean man. Everybody, we tumble over ourselves trying to find the right word for him. He's mean. That's what he is. And the idea that he is so tough, but he can't get anything done on the border situation. He can't secure the border. He can't talk to the other Central American countries. He can't do trade deals with them to make things better in their country so they won't need to leave or they won't want to leave. No, he can't do anything. He can't pass any law. He can't do jack crap. With the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the presidency. Okay, that's his story. He's sticking to it. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
This is a deliberate strategy of incitement. In American politics, our leaders used to go out and try to persuade the American people that their side was perhaps a little bit more correct than the other side.
Right.
There's never been a genteel period of American politics, but what we're seeing here is something new, particularly from a president. He uses lying at mass rallies to scapegoat minority populations. He alleges conspiracies. He creates a sense of mass victimization and then positions himself as the avenger on behalf of the victims, defending them from the invading horde of migrants coming from the south, approaching the border. This is all BS of the first order. When you see Newt Gingrich up there, one of the most singularly pernicious forces in the history of American politics, a man who more than any other has wrecked the collegiality, the comedy, who began and begat this era of partisan warfare. When you see his smug smirk talking about Caravan and Kavanaugh, Caravan and Kavanaugh, the Caravan, these are vulnerable people fleeing some of the most violence-ravaged places on earth. And why do they walk for 2,000 miles? Because of the power of an idea. That idea is this place. This country. America.
Yes.
That's Steve Schmidt, who actually, was John McCain's campaign chairman, and, Sarah Palin. They have come a long way, baby. Gotta say. But that is what this is. This is the politics of incitement. This is the politics of racism. This is the politics of grievance. This is right up there with Lee Atwater, Dirty Tricks. This is right up there with Roger Stone. This is right, Paul Manafort, I don't think he ever met a dictator that he wouldn't work for. Last night, Nikki Haley was at the Al Smith dinner in New York, the Catholic dinner. It's a little, daunting because today, front page of the paper, had the fact that the Catholic diocese in Pennsylvania is having their, I guess I'll call it a come to Jesus moment about the molestation of over 1,000 children over a period of 70 years. So, this Kavanaugh thing, it happened 37 years ago. Yeah, well, the Catholic Church somehow is going to reckon with 70 years of, molestation of children. However, Nikki Haley went to the Al Smith dinner, which is a Catholic dinner, and she made jokes last night, and they were funny. She was actually funny, and she said something like, she said something about, what the 192 countries in the world all have in common. In the end, every single person in every single leader from every single nation around the world, all 192 nations, have at some time or other paid Paul Manafort. It was very funny. It was. And she made jokes about her Indian heritage, saying that Donald Trump asked, if she was from the same tribe as Elizabeth Warren was. I mean, it was very funny. And she looked beautiful. So I guess she's running for president. I think that's what that is. But either that or she left because the Saudi thing was a little too much for her. I mean, this thing is just bizarre. You have a president who's literally coming up with excuses for the Saudi crime family. And they are a crime family. There is no question that they are criminals. The stuff they do, the human rights abuses, the way that they treat their... they are a religious nation, just like, everybody wants America to be a nation of one religion. Everybody wants that religion to be Christianity. Be careful what you wish for, because Saudi has only one religion. It's illegal to practice any other religion in Saudi Arabia. It is illegal. And they're sitting there, and they're going to come up with, they're going to give him more time, and they're going to give him a chance to, come up with an excuse. And this is just so unbelievable to me. We need nothing from Saudi Arabia. I mean, literally nothing from them. This is also something I pointed out over and over again. 15 of the 19 hijackers of 9/11 were Saudis. We are an energy-independent country. We literally export some of our energy. The Saudis only import 5% of any oil that we get. And where does that go? Where does it go? It goes to the Gulf of Mexico. Why? What's there? Saudi Aramco, a refinery. That's where it goes. It goes there to be refined, and then it's shipped out of the country. We need absolutely nothing from them. They are Wahhabist, the Wahhabi sect of Islam sort of makes, Liberty University look stupid. Do you know what I mean? It sort of makes God Hates Fags and that whole, ridiculous crowd of Christian anti-human protest. It makes them look almost dumb, because Wahhabism literally teaches their young people from the time they could breathe how evil how evil Christianity is, how evil Judaism is, how evil Jews are, and that they lurk behind the trees and they're coming to get you, and they export this stuff. They have exported terror from that country for forever. So I've been telling you this for days now. Finally, I heard somebody say it all in one sound clip too. And guess who it was? Oh my God, it was Steve Schmidt, the Republican.
This country has not, and never has been an ally of the United States. It is a leech on the United States. We need them for nothing geopolitically. We are an energy independent country. And if you look at North America, between Mexico and Canada and the United States, energy rich place on earth. This is a despotic regime. They have imported Wahhabism, Islamic extremism, to every corner of the world. It was 15 of the 19 hijackers in 9/11 were Saudis. They are engaged in a war crime in Yemen. Hundreds of thousands have been killed with American weaponry. And in the same way that Paul Manafort's criminality was an absolute, utter, open secret in Washington, D.C., who this guy is also an open secret. And there are few things more shameful than, one, an American president on his first foreign visit goes to Saudi Arabia, a place where we hail MBS and his progressivism because women can now drive a car alone. We need them for nothing.
Told you. I mean, this whole idea that we need them, that they're a good ally of ours. They're not anything to us. They're a criminal family is what they are. They're despotic. They're authoritarian. It's a dictatorship. They literally use rape as punishment for women. They chop off the fingers of journalists because that's how they write. They literally believe, not for themselves, because, when they come here, they wear jeans and Western clothes and they drink. They do every bad thing. But when they go there, they hold themselves out as holier than thou and the leaders of very strict Islam and very strict life, and women must be and it's an eye for an eye, and they will behead people, and they do behead people. They produced Osama bin Laden. They produced, the export of Wahhabist Islam around the world. The women were giving their wedding rings and they were saying in these tapes, for Islam we will give, to promote these madrasas. I mean, come on.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
I have two different reactions to this story. The first one is the technical intelligence that the Turks have demonstrated, if this story is true, if there are audio recordings, means that the Turks have had all of these embassies and consulates wired for some time. I mean, to go into the bowels of that building and to get audio or, audio recordings of a murder means that they know everything that's going on in that building, and they're very confident about how it's done. The second part is a little more disturbing. The chain of information that we've seen reported from the Post about U.S. intelligence knowing, having information about the Saudis' participation in this or issuing orders on this, we have a system set up so that the President of the United States is informed of critical flash traffic like that within 5 minutes, which means the President would have had to have known about the outline of this plot and the murder almost instantaneously.
Which the Turks did. They knew almost instantaneously because we now know that when the Saudis were leaving after they dismembered and boxed up the head, the fingers, the toes, the arms, the legs, the torso of Jamal Khashoggi, the Turks called the airport where those private jets with tail numbers that obviously belong to the Saudi royal family, they called and they asked the screeners who were screening these guys who were leaving whether or not they could detect human body parts. Now, you're telling me that they didn't tell the United States of America that a green card resident, a person who lived in Virginia and wrote for the Washington Post, they didn't call the United States and tell us? Of course the president has known. The president has known about this since almost the minute it happened. This is all to protect the Saudis. Now, why And how is it okay with you to have an American president who would rather be loyal to the Saudi crime family than would be loyal to an American? And he keeps saying, well, he wasn't a citizen. You know, Melania was a green card holder for a really long time, too. Would it be okay if they dismembered her? You remember all that talk he used to do about ISIS and ISIS this and ISIS that, and they behead people. They behead people. Yeah, that's what your friends the Saudis did, and that's what they do. But the money, you know, I can't say no to the money. The money is like everything. Money. You know, I mean, it's so amazing that The Apprentice used to come on to that really great song, Money, 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 Money. Some people gotta have it. Some people really need it. Do things. Do bad things with it. And he, you know, if you ever notice, he closes all his rallies with "you can't always get what you want." I mean, he's telling you everything. It's so sick. It's like he's playing you. It's like he takes such joy. Oh, I love the undereducated. He takes such pride in the fact that he can dupe you. He takes such joy in the fact that you are so completely stupid. He loves how stupid you are. This is why he plays to the lowest common denominator. He knows who his audience is. He talks about violence. He talks about body slamming. He talks about immigrants. He's got everything. He could do whatever he wants to do. They could have solved any problem we had with immigration by now. They could have done comprehensive immigration reform. They could have done border security. They could have done his wall. Anything he wanted. But he'd rather have the issue because he'd rather divide America. He'd rather bamboozle America. He'd rather con you than he would do anything for you, which is why you got maybe $38 and the top 1% split $1 trillion. $721 billion worth of stock buybacks. Holy crap. This man is such a phony. It just kills me. And why is Jared Kushner in charge of the Saudi criminal crime family?
Is there anything that qualifies Jared Kushner to be dealing with any of these issues?
Exactly.
He's an unsuccessful real estate developer who inherited millions of dollars and married the president's daughter. He's completely unqualified. This is gross nepotism, and it's just an embarrassment that he has any power at all, much less in this critical area of the world.
That's the risk here, is that he's cultivated this close relationship that he thought was going to be pretty beneficial in his role into this administration.
Yeah, and he also thought that buying, 666 Fifth Avenue for $1.8 billion right before the crash of the real estate market was a good thing to do, too. I mean, this guy has no judgment. Absolutely none. He inherited... It's like, how do you make a small fortune? You give a big fortune to the Kushner family. That's how you get a small fortune. I mean, same thing with the Trump family. How do you make a small fortune? You give a huge fortune. You give $400 million to Trump, and you end up with debt. That's how you make small. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. These people are insane. And what do? They play into the misogyny. They play into white men's fears. They play into They point at all these different people, and they say they're responsible for your lot in life, when truly it is the Congress. All this stuff is on the ballot, by the way. Everything you care about is on the ballot. Wages is on the ballot. Union organization is on the ballot. Whether or not you're going to have pre-existing conditions covered is on the ballot. I mean, peace is on the ballot. War is on the ballot. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is on the ballot. It's all there. Everybody wonders, why don't they do what I want them to do? I'm not even going to vote. Well, that's the answer, because it's all on the ballot. You're looking up to God. You're looking deep inside. You're looking to your guru. You're looking at your yoga class. You're looking to philosophers. You're looking in books. No, it's all in the ballot. It's all on the ballot. Everything you give a rat's ass about is on the ballot, but you don't vote. It doesn't get done. This man's got it all, and he hasn't solved any of your problems, and he never will. He never will. He's much more interested in solving the problems that the Saudis have right now. Here's like the best reporting. It's very short and sweet, but it tells you everything. Everything.
Well, there are so many moving parts to this story. As you saw, President Trump saying that he thinks Khashoggi's dead. the Secretary of State saying we should give him more time, while the Saudis are reportedly looking for some sort of scapegoat, someone to pin this on. There are a couple of names that have surfaced of people who the Saudis would like to label as a rogue agent, someone who was acting beyond their authority and may have, instead of just going after critics and trying to pressure them into being not quite as harsh as they have been against the Saudi Crown Prince, to actually going out and killing them. So this is a very bizarre story on political levels, because the Saudi Crown Prince has had this meteoric rise over the last year, and now his reputation, maybe even his own political future, are tainted, and potentially at risk. So what could happen over the next few days? It seems like the Saudis have to come up with a very plausible, very good excuse as to why, according to Turkish officials and others, Jamal Khashoggi died in the consulate here in this country. Because if that excuse isn't bought, the Crown Prince's rise could potentially come to a halt.
It could potentially come to a halt.
To think that they were going to just interrogate him, but they happened to show up with bone saws, and they cut the man's body apart while he was alive, and Mike Pompeo is sitting next to that man, the Saudi prince. I don't understand what world we're living in. This is not the America that we grew up loving. This is not the country that all the rest of the world looked to as a leader of freedom and democracy. We have become a joke and an embarrassment, and this country is going down the tubes under this man, and I don't understand for the life of me why he can't be stopped.
Thank you, Rosie. I mean, you know, the first attacks on women was Rosie. I mean, that's how Donald Trump built up his Twitter followers. Rosie had a TV show. She was very popular. She was known as the Queen of Nice. And Donald Trump started tweeting about her and, you know, her looks, and she's a slob, and she's a pig. And he was literally doing it to get her followers. And that's how he built that. And then, you know, all of a sudden he learned about bots. And you've got, you know, thousands of them. Twitter just pulled off a whole bunch of, you know, it's so funny. Pompeo goes to Saudi, and all of a sudden Saudis are tweeting the same message with different images all over the place at the same time. And, you know, MSNBC literally had to go with spreadsheets and show Twitter that they were violating their spam rules so that Twitter would do something about the bots that the Saudis employed and deployed against their own freaking people. It's just such a sick story. And it's all because you have a president who has a lust for money and power, and it is combined with such an intensity of intolerance towards other races, other parties, other classes, other religions, cultures, nations. He's just so deceitful, and he endorses violence in the name of taking out your anger about any of those things. This is not American. This is foreign stuff. This is bizarre. This has nothing to do with you know, why we fight or why we serve or why I did anyway. It's just so sick and twisted. Jerry in Baltimore.
Hey, Randy, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
You know, it has occurred to me that this caravan thing, it started very timely underneath Obama, and I believe it's the Republican dirty tricks team going down there and paying those people and inciting them to come up here, because it's just like Trump needed a distraction from the Kaloji thing, and here we come. We got a caravan. We got video. People giving them money.
I got news for you. These caravans have happened almost every year, like clockwork. Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason why they do it is because the trip is so brutal, and a lot of them, you know, get picked off. Their children get stolen, so they do it in a group. But you're talking about 200 people who left Honduras, and now you've got more people joining them from Guatemala. And, you know, Mexico has said that if they don't have valid paperwork and they're not going to claim asylum in Mexico, then they're turning them away. Listen, this guy just would rather point at Democrats and blame them, or point at this one and blame them, or point at that one and blame them, than he would solve your problem. And, of course, he can. He can solve the problem. He's got the House, he's got the Senate, he's got the presidency, he's got the courts. I mean, if that man can't solve your problem now, why would you believe that he's going to solve your problem, in a year or two? Makes no sense.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He can't resolve anything. He couldn't get killed.
No, he can. He doesn't want to. He much prefers to do what the Russians want him to do, and that is divide this country right down the ass crack. That is what they're doing. It is what
doing a good job of it.
They do a wonderful job of it. There's no question in my mind that it serves his purpose of dividing this nation so that he can continue to grab money and he can continue to worship his supreme God, which is cash. Okay, cash and dollars and petrodollar and rubles. It's all he cares about. He doesn't care about anything else. He couldn't care less about immigration. He couldn't care less about health care. Couldn't care less about safety and security. He preaches violence. He preaches go do criminal things. And then when people do criminal things and we catch them on videotape, he points to somebody else and he said, but they egged him on or they started it. I mean, like a child, like a freaking child. Dan in Granby, Massachusetts.
Yeah, hey, how are you?
Hi.
Hi, good. One thing you were talking about was just like you were just saying, he could get a lot of these things done. What I'm worried about the Republicans in general is that, they've had it in for so-called entitlements for so long. Unless I've missed something, from what I understand, it hasn't really been cut yet. I don't know why they didn't cut it.
Oh, you don't? Oh, let me explain this to you. Because if they're in the majority in both houses and they have the presidency and the court, and they would slash Social Security and Medicare, everybody would know exactly who did it. So they're waiting to have split government so that they can do it. And then they can point to the Democrats and say, see, they did it.
Yeah, but what if the House gets taken over by Democrats?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Uh-huh. Okay, but if the Democrats are in, is it hard
They're not in. They're not in.
Okay, they're not in now, but
they're
later
not
on.
In. No, Democrats will not cut Medicare or Social Security, and you know why? Because it doesn't do a thing to solve the deficit problem. If they cut Medicare and Social Security, guess where the money would go?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about.
No, not yeah. Where does the money go? I told you the answer, so this is an open book test as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, all right.
All right, so the money goes back to the trust fund.
Okay.
So it does nothing to solve the deficit.
Okay.
So there's no reason to do it, and Democrats would never do it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Ed in Chicago.
Yeah, hi, Randy. Listen, if you want a microcosm, what happens when you don't show up to vote? Your UPS drivers are not a bunch of happy campers because less than half of their membership voted on their recent contract, but the half that did vote, of that half, 54% rejected it. But under the union rules, they needed at least 60% to vote it down, but they didn't get enough people in their own union to show up to vote. So now these guys are stuck with a contract that they don't want.
Okay, well, that's private business, okay? And those unions are nearly broken. Only 11% of Americans are in unions anymore.
I know.
And the majority, wait, let's just explain this to people. The majority of people who still are in unions, guess where they work? They work for the government. They're public employees. They're police officers. They're school teachers, if they're lucky. They are, people who work at the State Department. They're people who work at the FBI. They're people who work, in government, positions. And they're the only ones left in the union. And guess what? This last Supreme Court decision, the Janus decision, did. It said you could benefit from being in a public union workshop, but you don't have to contribute any union dues because they're going after the police officers union. They're going after school teachers union. They're going after the last public employees sector unions. So, if you say, I love the police, Blue Lives Matter, well, then you better be for unions because it's the only thing that's left for them. But they this government of ours, they want all the trust funds. They want all the pension funds. The unions have those pension funds. You know damn well they do. I mean, if you ever watch Goodfellas, you understand that the original casinos were built by signing away the union pension funds to build those damn casinos, okay? So there are tranches of money in the public sector unions, and the Republicans want it. and they want to use it to pay down the deficit and let police officers work for $7.75 an hour. Screw you. Okay? That's where we're at. So,
I know.
All right, so all these people that love school teachers and all these people that, I mean, look at all the strikes we had. I read you yesterday a great op-ed that was written by a school teacher in Oklahoma who was born and bred and voted her whole life and campaigned for and made phone calls for Republican candidates. And then all of a sudden, you know, the teachers had to go out on strike because their kids didn't have a book for the course. She didn't have any supplies. And it changed her entire view of the world because she was always campaigning against social services. She thought they were and now she realizes the kids she taught, just like herself, she had ADD. But people worked with her one-on-one, and she said the teachers can't do it. Now they got 40 kids.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Social Security, let's lay it to rest once and for all. I told you never would I do such a thing. But I tell you also now, Social Security has nothing to do with the deficit. Social Security is totally funded by the payroll tax levied on employer and employee. If you reduce the outgo of Social Security, that money would not go into the general fund to reduce a deficit. It would go into the Social Security Trust Fund. So Social Security has nothing to do with balancing a budget or erasing or lowering the deficit.
Thank you, Ronnie. Although they could steal the trust fund, they could privatize the trust fund, which is what Bush tried to do. If you privatized the trust fund, then you'd get all kinds of cash out of the trust fund. You'd get management fees. You'd get paydays for, all kinds of, and they could redirect your trust fund into Junior's trust fund to give him another tax break. See, but if you cut Social Security, and I want everybody to pay attention to this because they're coming after entitlements. They have said as much, and they've said it before the election, which is just so stupid. But they've said entitlements are on the table. Larry Kudlow said it. Ryan said it. McConnell said it. I played it for you all week long. Just go look at the clips. But honestly, if they cut cost of living adjustments, or if they cut benefits, or if they cut, raise the age or whatever it is, that money doesn't go to the deficit. It goes back into the trust fund. That is the way Social Security is designed. But what they would like to do is change the design so that the money can be stolen and that the money can be used to do another round of tax cuts, or the money can be used to pay down the deficit. It doesn't work like that. Ronald Reagan told you that a long time ago, and he was not a fan of Medicare or Social Security. I like history, though. I love history. Little clips like that, they, serve their purpose. In fact, there's something in the homework today that is a must-read over the weekend. I will get you started. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I want to finish up with these phone calls, but it's called, this is an opinion piece that was written by Henry Wallace. Anybody? Henry A. Wallace, 1944. Vice President of the United States. He was FDR's vice president. Henry Wallace. He ran as a third-party candidate. He was an independent, okay? And he ran with FDR, and he was our vice president. He was our vice president from 1941 until 1945. And then he was a third-party candidate in 1948, and obviously did not win. But he wrote this op-ed, and it requires, like, no introduction. Think about how old this is and how prescient it is. He wrote, "On returning from my trip to the West in February, I received a request from the New York Times." Yeah, the failing New York Times, 1944. I don't know how they sold newspapers before Donald Trump, or how they'll sell a newspaper after Donald Trump. Yeah. "On returning from my trip to the West in February, I received a request from the New York Times to write a piece answering the following questions. 1, what is a fascist? 2, how many fascists have we? And 3, how dangerous are they?" Now, I'm just going to start you, okay? I want you to finish this over the weekend. He wrote, a fascist is one whose lust for money or power is combined with such an intensity of intolerance toward those of other races, parties, classes, regions, cultures, or nations, or religions, as to make him ruthless in his use of deceit or violence to attain his ends. The supreme god of a fascist, to which his ends are directed, may be money or power, may be a race or a class, may be a military clique or an economic group, or may be a culture, religion, or a political party. The perfect type of fashion, though, or at least throughout recent centuries, has been the Prussian junker who developed such hatred for other races and such allegiance to a military clique as to make him willing at all times to engage in any degree of deceit and violence necessary to place his culture and race astride the world. In every big nation of the world are at least a few people who have the fascist temperament. Every Jew baiter, every Catholic hater is a fascist at heart. The hoodlums who have been desecrating churches, cathedrals, and synagogues in some of our larger cities are ripe material for fascist leadership. The obvious types of American fascists are dealt with on the air and in the press. These demagogues and stooges are fronts for others. Dangerous as these people may be, they are not so significant as thousands of other people who have never even been mentioned. The really dangerous American fascists are not those who are hooked up directly or indirectly with the Axis. The FBI has his finger on those. The dangerous American fascist is the man who wants to do in the United States the way that Hitler did in Germany. The American fascist would prefer not to use violence. His method is to poison the channels of public information. With a fascist, the problem is never how best to present the truth to the public, but how best to use news to deceive the public into giving the fascist and his group more money or more power. If we define an American fascist as one who, in the case of conflict, puts money and power ahead of human beings, then there are undoubtedly several million fascists in the United States. There are probably several 100,000 if we narrow the definition to include only those who, in their search for money and power, are ruthless and deceitful. They do this even in those cases where they hope to have profitable connections with German chemical firms after the war ends. They are patriotic in a time of war because it is in their interest to be so. But in a time of peace, they follow power and the dollar wherever they may lead. American fascism will not be really dangerous until there is a purposeful coalition among the cartelists, the deliberate poisoners of public information, and those who stand for KKK type of demagoguery. I'll stop there. I want you to read the rest of this. This goes on for 6 pages, okay? This is the most amazing, prescient thing. It was written in 1944 by Henry Wallace, the Vice President of the United States. This was during the World War II. It was during, the part of our history where we were beating back fascists, where my father was deployed doing that work. And he's trying to tell you that that's only one kind of fascist. Okay, the German fascists. Then you got your American guys who pretend to be like uber patriots, but truly they are down with this either for power, money, or because they believe in racist, religious, classist bigotry, and that they are more of a danger than the Germans were, because we knew we could beat them back, and we did. And that's what he was saying in this piece. This piece is unbelievable. Now, you listen to this president, and you listen to what he says about the news, and you listen to what he says about violence, and you listen to what he says about groups like the Proud Boys or Unite the Right, which was organized by one of the Proud Boys, and this gang that promotes violence and says, you know, we're going to choke you out and we're going to kill you, and everybody get a gun and, you know, fight each other and, you know, set one American upon the other. I mean, this is really what he's about. It's what he does.
You see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees. I promise. The guards are very gentle with him. He's walking out like big high fives, smiling, laughing. Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. All right, yeah, get him out. Try not to hurt him. If you do, I'll defend you in court. Don't worry about it. Hillary wants to essentially abolish the Second Amendment. By the way, and if she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know.
You see what I mean? And then last night, he actually told people that somebody who can body slam a journalist is his kind of guy.
Any guy that can do a body slam, he's my kind. He's my guy. I shouldn't say the truth, but there's nothing to be embarrassed about. So I was in Rome with a lot of the leaders from other countries, talking about all sorts of things. And I heard about it. And we endorsed Greg very early. But I had heard that he body slammed a reporter.
A reporter.
And he was way up. And I said, oh, this was like the day of the election or just before. And I said, oh, this is terrible. He's going to lose the election. Then I said, well, wait a minute. I know Montana pretty well. I think it might help him. And it did.
This is irresponsible, but this is also the fascist way. I'm just going to, leave you with this last little bit, okay? This is from page 3 of the 6 pages that you really need to read over the weekend to acquaint yourself with what is actually happening here. Okay, this is about the American fascists. The American fascists are most easily recognized by their deliberate perversion of truth and fact. Their newspapers and propaganda clearly cultivate every fissure of disunity, every crack in the common front against fascism. They use every opportunity to impugn democracy. They use isolationism as a slogan to conceal their own selfish imperialism. They cultivate hate and distrust. They claim to be super patriots, but they would destroy every liberty guaranteed by the Constitution. They demand free enterprise, but they are the spokesman for monopoly and vested interests. Their final objective towards which all their deceit is directed is to capture political power so that, using the power of the state and the power of the market simultaneously, they may keep the common man in internal subjugation. That is what's going on here. There is no question that all of this hatred that's being ginned up and all of this demagoguery and all of this conning you into believing he's an uber patriot while running ads, and I've shown you the ads, okay? And this is why we started there. Because those ads are a 180 from who these people are. They are impugning and destroying the reputation of combat pilots, Afghan and Iraq veterans, Harvard-educated Rhodes scholars. They are impugning the efforts of people who are trying to preserve pre-existing condition coverage by calling them terrorists because they have a last name that maybe has too many consonants in it for your liking. They do this to everybody all the time, to the point where everyone is so ginned up that there is a crack in the nation's ass where fascists are on one side and the anti-fascists are on the other side, and somehow you have a president who equates the two as being equally good people. fascism in and of itself is evil. It is a horrible system to live under. If you lived in Saudi Arabia as an American, your head would spin. Your head would spin. And he is covering for them. If you lived in Russia, where I've been, with all your free speech and your freedom of assembly and free newspapers and freedom of the press, if you lived there, if I had to stay there, do you remember when we left, Howard? I swear to God, I literally did this. This might be, kind of crass, but I am a Brooklyn girl and I am not, always, politically correct. But as we were leaving, we were on a ship. And I went to the back of the ship. And as we pulled out, I dropped my pants and I mooned it. I mooned Russia and told them to kiss my American ass. That place is disgraceful. People literally make $450 a month. And the oligarchs are worth billions. And Donald Trump is licking his lips saying, this is the way that I want things. I love the way they do this. And if I have to starve people, I don't care. Human life means nothing. I am a transactional president. And I did tell you, this was a little story, and why no one covered it, I don't know, but $100 million of Saudi money was deposited into the State Department bank account when Mike Pompeo was sitting smiling with MBS. $100 million, that's his price. I mean, the man is a cheap whore. $100 million. The family, the crime family, the Saudi crime family, they're worth over $1 trillion. I mean, it's like multiple trillions, okay? That's how rich they are. And they have nothing we want. Nothing. And the more we innovate and the more electric cars and things like that we do, we make everything they have worthless. You watch them come crawling on their belly to us. Buy a stinking podcast.